We are back. We are back. We are back. And we got a lot to cover today because we've got a lot of news, a lot of reports coming out this week.
It's a big day, big week. This is actually the biggest week in 2 years.
I was going to say, looking at every report that is coming out this week, they all feel big. But of course, there's some that are going to be a little bit bigger than others. The biggest being the rate cut.
Rate cut today is going to be the biggest.
Yes, so we're going to cover that. We've got some political news for you guys, some economic news, of course, rate cuts, we'll be talking about stock market, some interesting news been rolling out with some milestones being hit there, some single-family stuff. So we got a little bit of everything this week. That being said, why don't we dig in on some of the crazy headlines that are coming out this week? We've got Mr. Sean Diddy Combs has officially been arrested on sex trafficking charges. Let's see.
Kind of saw that one coming.
Sex trafficking and racketeering, according to a federal indictment unsealed Tuesday. Combs has been arrested late Monday in Manhattan, roughly 6 months after federal authorities conducting a sex trafficking investigation raided his luxurious home in Los Angeles. They found hundreds of lubricant bottles, 3 AR-15s, and a bunch of other weird stuff that they put in this report.
I didn't see the list. Hundreds of lubricant bottles?
Hundreds of lubricant bottles. Homie was keeping it slicking.
Damn, dude, he's like the gold member, but instead of crispy skin, he's just always oiled up looking like a seal.
Yeah, he doesn't have the little pocket thing with the skin inside of it that he
like he never has to ask for you to move. He just glides right on by.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Some accountability obviously coming out there. I think his bail is set at $50 million. He's trying to put up one of his mansions and park his private jet under authority, watch and all kinds of things basically to get out of federal prison right now. So
because he doesn't want to know what happens when there's one bottle of lube in the cell.
And he don't want to be under the federal watch around a case that when somebody like this, who is essentially from the reports and everything, he had cameras at all of his parties, in rooms, in private areas that it shouldn't have been. He's got a lot of dirt on a lot of people. And it's a similar Epstein-ish type of MO. And at least from, you can obviously believe what you want to believe, but Epstein going into jail and cameras not working and all of a sudden him killing himself when there were multiple reports that he said many a times, I'm never going to kill myself. This seems like something maybe kind of similar of, hey, get me out of jail. This ain't a safe place for me because he's got a lot of dirt on a lot of people that probably would like him not to say anything.
You know what? I love to see people that are not doing good things deal with hard times.
Yeah.
So, worst on you. Hopefully it's not fun. That was wild, though, that $50 million. That means they got some stuff.
They got some stuff. They don't want him getting out.
Wow.
OnlyFans, talk about investing your dollars into companies that you feel aligned with. OnlyFans seems to have a lot of people investing their dollars into that company. OnlyFans has paid its owner, Leonid Radvinsky, $472 million. He's Ukrainian. $472 million in dividends last fiscal year, bringing his takings from the site to more than $1 billion. 3 years, Radvinsky made $338 million in 2022, $284 million the year before that. And I saw this crazy headline: OnlyFans creators, the people on the platform, reportedly made more money last year than every single NBA player combined. I think it was...
Who has better fans then, the NBA or the OF?
So OnlyFans content creators in 2023 made $6.6 billion. And in the 2023-2024 NBA season combined payroll, the NBA had $4.9 billion.
Capitalism is an incredible thing to watch.
That just is wild to me to see how many people would rather invest their dollars into an online girlfriend that doesn't even know who you are, or boyfriend, versus throwing that money into Nvidia or stocks or life insurance.
Like I say, it's like,
it's mind-boggling.
I'm like, wow. Hey, but you know what? Hopefully those creators, whoever they are, I think most of them are going to be adult content creators.
Yep, most
Hopefully
of them.
they're taking that money.
They're not. When you think about it, a lot of these women I went down a little rabbit hole here. A lot of these women have just like professional athletes have agents and managers who take a split and a cut. That's
They have agents,
that's where
yeah.
Andrew Tate made most of his money that
yeah.
most people don't know, right? And
OnlyFans. Yep.
he was running, he had his crew of women, and he was facilitating all the money. You just show up in the room and do whatever you do. Yeah, he was a legal pimp essentially. And that's where he made a lot of his money. And I was talking with a buddy the other day about this, and I thought this was interesting. It actually made me think of you, and not in the way that you're probably thinking right now. That's a market for investors and management investors and money managers to go in there and say, hey, you're making your dough. Do what you want to do with it, but just divert a little bit of that over here, and let me show you how I can make a great return on that, right? Like you think about how much money, because there's a lot of people that try and break into professional sports and athletes and saying, hey, you're going to waste all your money away. You're not financially literate. Your financial IQ is practically zero. Let me help you build wealth, educate you, provide resources, tools, access. They've been working on breaking into doing that in professional sports leagues for a long time. And it's started to take, a little bit more momentum over the last few years. But this seems like a blue ocean to me.
I'll tell you, the water's warm. I have a few clients that are in the creator space.
Yes.
And I told them, because they asked me if that was a big problem.
No judgment.
Money's green. It's illegal.
Yeah.
I don't care to know what it's from as long as
it's legal and above board, right?
I will tell you, all the ones that I work with,
they're making dough.
White, substantial, and they do well and hold and lead. Outside of that, awesome people that I don't hold judgment on people. It's not my job to do that.
What you do in your bedroom is your business.
What you do for your professional career is your business. Yeah. But yes, I will tell you, the ones that do make the decision are making a good decision, because that has a very big similarity with professional sports in that it's a huge hit in a short period of time. And so you can really leverage and take advantage of that.
Be set for the rest of your life.
Correct. And the ones that I work with, that was their goal. They said, if I'm going to do stuff and have a short-lived career in this, I'm going to put as much of those assets away as I can.
Smart.
So that I can stop as soon as I want to, but maintain a lifestyle that makes me comfortable, that makes me happy. And so if the people are listening to this podcast, good on you, because you've done something that's not normal in the industry that you're in. But it is crazy that you see, like, we just had a professional football player that is Adrian Peterson.
Yep.
Made $10 million over his
$100 million.
$100 million over his career, and he's $10 million in debt.
Yes.
That's what it is. To me, I'm like,
and he's only in his early 40s.
Oh, and the craziest thing to me is it's like, you still have a ton of goodwill value on your name.
Yeah.
You were a good running back. You were a good NFL player. It is crazy, because I know if I made that amount of money, a lot of people are like, gave Kelsey a lot of flack for retiring.
Homie made his money.
He made over $100 million in football. Is still very healthy, still very young, and has a ton of goodwill value to his name. You know what that means? That's the fictitious value that your brand, your image, your face card carries when you apply it to something. That's why you see a lot of professional athletes endorse things.
Yeah.
Endorsing influencers.
He's got a crazy amount of endorsements. And then their podcast just got, I think, $100 million contract. Him and his brother, Travis Kelce.
I don't agree with a lot of the endorsements that he's taken.
Agreed.
But to give you an idea of, again, why that he doesn't need football, he said, I've already made a ton of money. I can literally retire, invest this money, and then live a very happy and healthy life. And probably the best hybrid example that we've seen in our lifetimes early on was Michael Jordan. In the middle, one that we got to see a lot more was like Shaq.
Yep.
Michael Jordan has now
LeBron.
LeBron is doing good too. I don't know if I saw that it was the top or in the top 3 value of their brand. And the craziest thing is that was like a very big push on by his mom. To have him do his deal to where he made a percentage forever off of his Jordan name, and like he wouldn't have the wealth he has today had not Nike taken off, had not Nike taken a risk on him, and had his mom not suggested that, and he listened to his mother.
Yep.
But those endorsement deals, the goodwill value of your name is huge. And so to me, backing up to Adrian Peterson, That blows my mind, because if I even had like up front, if somebody just gave me $5 million, I'd be 10 years ago, I'd be good. I would have probably 30 or 40 million right now from that 5 million if somebody gave me that 10 years ago, because I would have invested the money, put the money to work, and I would have lived off the money. I'm not going to lie. I would have lived off of it. But you can live off, that's $250,000 a year of passive income. How can you not live on that?
Yeah, 100%. Another good example is you obviously have those guys, right? LeBron's the first athlete to, through endorsements and everything, make over $1 billion while playing in his career.
Yeah. MJ did that a while ago.
But he did it while he was playing, right? And MJ carried that goodwill on for so long. There's another guy that nobody has ever heard about. Have you heard of the guy named Junior Bridgman? You wouldn't. When I heard this story, and I
what
thought
sport?
Basketball.
What year? What like years?
He was, I think, back in like the 80s, 90s, maybe.
Junior
A Milwaukee Bucks player, never made more than $350,000 in a season, and he has a $600 million net worth. He took his money during the off season. He would go and work at Wendy's because he wanted to learn about the franchise. Then he started buying Wendy's. Then he parlayed into another one. He ended up with hundreds of Wendy's, then started diversifying into Chili's restaurants, then got into a distributorship with Coca-Cola, like all of these things, right? But it just shows you that, again, you can be like Adrian Peterson, make over $100 million in your career and be $10 million in debt because you don't have financial literacy, or you could make $350,000 a year and turn it into a $600 million empire if you have financial literacy.
I can't even understand how that happened.
Isn't that crazy?
It hurts my head to even try to compute it. Doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
That is so wild.
Yeah. Second richest NBA player of all time.
For real? Behind Michael Jordan.
Correct. And no, this was before the 2020 era of basketball players, is what it says.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good one, man. That's insane. That much from restaurants is even insane.
Check him out.
Bridgman.
And to me, it's just an inspiring story of just saying, if you make consistent, intelligent, doesn't need to be insanely large investments and choices over an extended period of time.
You've done that.
You can build some great stuff. Yeah, and mine slowly.
Matt's account with me started very small,
and
has now gotten into the 6-figure range. And all he does is the same thing. Never, ever, ever stops. Does the same amount. And it allows him to focus on the other stuff where he derives that capital from.
Yep.
Put some of this money away so it can work for him. And soon enough, it will gather more and more legs. But it's the hardest hurdle for a lot of people. And in my world, it's like the $100,000 mark.
Yep.
And once you get past that, the return, the compounded interest is just absolutely insane. Compounded interest is so crazy because when a lot of people have never actually done the math on would you take a penny a day compounded for 30 days?
Yeah.
That's millions of dollars at day 30, just so you know, starting from a penny, just doubling it. And that's 30 times in a row.
Yeah.
So compounded interest is definitely backloaded, but when it starts, it doesn't really stop.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. And in the stock world, and I'm not saying go chase high dividend yield investments. I'm not saying be a dividend investor. To me, dividend investing is overblown. You should take your dividends and reinvest them, obviously, not chase high yield. That is a very successful strategy. Everybody can be successful at it. It takes time.
Yeah.
But what you can do while you're bored is you can leverage into some real estate.
Yeah.
And in the interim, you can fill that gap because real estate works almost the exact opposite. You get all the value right up front. You get all the cash flow like you would get in the back end with stocks up front. And then all you have to do is manage that asset properly. You can force value into something. Technically, you can in the stock market too, but it would take you and millions of other people with millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a lot harder to do. So that's why these two asset classes historically are number one and number two. They provide the most insulation from inflation, no pun or rhyme intended there. And they allow you to get the most financial freedom. And if you do both of them in a non-qualified way, which that's primarily the way people invest in real estate, not primarily how people invest in the stock market, but if you do them both in a non-qualified way, you could be 42 years old and decide to hang it up, still run your empire, still grow your net worth, still create your wealth wheel, do it on your own terms.
Yeah.
And that's what they don't teach us in high school. That's what they don't teach you in college. that's not something that enough people talk about, but it's really that simple. You can focus on 2 asset classes, get the benefits of both long term, but stocks complement real estate in the back. Real estate complements stocks in the front end. Eventually, you get benefits from one that you don't get from the other, and then you ride them both into the sunset. It's really not more complicated than that. But if everybody knew that, you'd have a lot more money, you'd have a lot more influence, and people at top would have a lot less power.
100%. Second richest man has officially been dethroned today. First richest man, Elon Musk.
Oh, Larry Ellison?
Second richest man is now
The richest.
Larry Ellison of Oracle. Has become the world's second richest man, dethroning Jeff Bezos of Amazon. Shares of Oracle are up 23% for the month. If the rally stops there, it would be their best month since October of 2022, when the stock soared percent, and the second best month since roughly 2 decades ago in October of 2002. What's going on over at Oracle?
It's the AI cloud computing business. It's data center. They're deriving in. You go back a couple months.
So this AI bubble has not popped.
Oh, no, it's still going. And I was talking back in March. I want y'all to listen to some podcasts back in March of this year, because we took a large position back in Oracle around for the clients that I manage my assets with. I took around the 110, 113 range the day that we kind of got in. And I think it's trading for what's the price per share? In the 140s, 150s?
168.
$50 a share. And
Yeah.
so and dividends paid in that time that we're reinvesting. That is what you pay an advisor for. I was just talking to Matt about another position we picked up in his account 10 days ago.
Yeah.
We're up over 21% on that.
I'm liking that one.
We don't make that in the account as a whole all the time, but that's what we do as advisors and how we provide value for the fee that we charge. And then again, Matt can focus on what he's best at, which is helping y'all with your commercial real estate and then managing his own portfolios, his own deals, his own business. It allows you to get the best of both worlds without having to focus on both.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I literally check my account once a month, and knowing that you and your team are overseeing
What is your average rate of
everything.
return, say, on your if you're on?
I'm not on it right now, but I think it was.
Can I say it if I pull it?
Yeah, I think it was
18.83.
There you go. Better. That last investment you made bumped me
I
up
probably
a little
bumped
bit.
up a little bit.
Little juice there. But guys, this is why having someone like Ryan on your team, if you haven't taken advantage of the free financial x-ray that him and his amazing team do on your entire investment portfolio, just the value in that alone, getting that for free, getting a second opinion, a second look, somebody really diving in that's unbiased, that's going to just give you a second set of eyes on something. The biggest thing, obviously, is making sure you're not getting overfeed, but then also looking at all of the potential, lost opportunity that you might be missing by not making some of these things, a priority in your portfolio based on your goals. Highly encourage it. Again, there's no obligation here. You don't need to switch over. This is just something that Ryan and his team do for all of our Millionaire Mindcast listeners. You can text the word X-ray to 844-447-1555. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. And obviously now, you and I are best friends, and it gives me the ability
a really fun restaurant, had a great conversation. It was funny because he has a tie to that restaurant with his family.
Yep.
And B, it was fun to go to that restaurant because we always do the same thing, and they always have a really good old fashioned. And so we always go back and have some old fashions. But not to digress. It's so important. I'll speak on that and then we can move on. I had a client that I'm working with right now who has been with her advisor and was very hesitant because her husband was going to move their assets to me. He's got about $1 million. She has got about 1.5. And she said, hey, I'm happy with my current guy. I said, great. As long as you're happy with your current guy, not here to be a relationship ender. That's not my job.
Yep.
But he was like, hey, and I was paying a lot more than I thought I was paying. Let's just look. Finally, she said, you know what? As long as you're okay with knowing that I'm not guaranteeing, and I said, you have no cost or obligation, I generally can show you why it might be a good idea if it is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Paying 5.75% front end load and paying 2% in total assets on that. I
on $1 million.
So
that adds up.
I did the math. And I said, if I had 1/3 of the amount of assets on my fee, you would still pay less than you're paying on your total assets. Like your total asset fee, that's I would have to have triple the amount of assets to get that fee for what you're paying.
Yep.
And so long story short, you don't know what you don't know. You don't have to be scared of knowing the truth.
Yep.
You should want to know the truth. You should have somebody somebody like a third party verify that you are doing what's best for you. And the best part about it is we tell people if they're doing good.
Yeah.
If you're doing good.
Yeah,
we
I've seen
can't
you do that
anything
with many
better.
people.
We
Yeah.
literally just tell you that. It rarely happens, but if that is the case, we will tell you that.
Well, to me too, I think what was kind of eye-opening was when you look at the delta on that difference, and then you look at the delta on that difference over an extended period of time, and if it was actually generating a yield and or a dividend, that really adds up, especially like you said, when you get into a 7-figure account, you get into an 8. Now you're talking a big deal.
18% on 100,000 is $18,000 a year. 18% on $1 million is 180.
It's a big deal. You know what's interesting to me too? I have found that people, I guess maybe you can give a little bit more insight on this, but I've been around some people that are very wealthy, and I would say more than, I guess, less, which is surprising to me. The wealthier they get, almost the less discipline they got around those types of things. It was like they had enough money and it was so abundant and plentiful that they stopped paying attention to the impact that those little things had, which ultimately they used to pay attention to those things, and those are the things that got them there. And then they kind of like softened up a little bit. Do you see that in some of your like wealthier clients, or do they watch those tales like a hawk? And I know it's probably a personality profile. It's probably a little bit different for everybody, but I was just, I guess, kind of shocked to see that, some of the people that had a lot of wealth were not necessarily auditing and paying attention to those little things and thinking about how those little things could actually lead to much bigger returns if the money was saved and or reallocated in the right way.
All the ones that I know that don't do that don't because they have hired an accountant and or advisor or both, and so they know they have somebody keeping an eye on that because it's the point where they can't. All the people that I do know that are like that do everything by themselves because they got there by themselves and they're too stubborn to let up the reins. And so they end up presenting and creating these cracks that they don't know how to fill, but they're too stubborn to let it go.
Interesting.
In certain areas, I can think of sometimes my dad is very stubborn on some of the things that he is used to doing. I've told him for many years that he should do something specifically for his tax setup. He thinks that don't know what I'm talking about because his background is in accounting.
Yeah.
From the 80s and 90s.
You have to throw that in there.
And, I'll give him the credit. Most of the time he is right.
Yeah.
Very rarely is he wrong. But there's sometimes people get resistant to change because they're so used to doing something that already got them there. And so for me, I've been more open to failing and figuring out why and trying new things. And that's been good for me. Whereas I know people that are self-doers.
Yeah.
And typically it's the self-doers that fall into the category of I'm happy with what I'm doing because it's working. I don't care if there's something better. I don't want the risk of finding out.
Yeah. Which I get that too, right? Hey, there might be more meat on the bone. I'm cool with what I'm getting.
You have to ask yourself, if you didn't have that mindset and got here, now you're going to adopt that mindset.
Yeah.
So you just have to constantly remind yourself, you have to always keep moving forward.
Yeah, keep evolving, keep adapting, keep changing, keep learning, stay curious, because some of these systems, some of these laws, some of these structures, a lot of those things change over time, right?
Yes, they do.
Trump assassination attempt number 2.
Yeah, verification. Democrats suck at aiming, and they are not a good shot.
Crazy.
Don't use them if you don't got them, folks. In all seriousness, that's bad.
They did actually catch the guy who had an AK-47, a scope, a GoPro.
Looks like he hung plate, so he was trying to act like he was doing.
Yep. And they actually ended up finding him, arrested him. He is in custody, and
we're at the over/under on 7 days
of him staying alive or dead.
Yes, hoping the over.
I'm hoping the over, and here's why I'm gonna say the over.
He is in Florida
because he's in Florida, and we got Mr. Ron DeSantis, who is assigning a special prosecutor to the case, Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody. And essentially, he really wants to make sure that this case is not handed over to the FBI and that this is conducted under their state laws and hopefully giving the American people some truth. Because I'll just go out on a limb and say, I don't think this guy was acting alone. I don't think this was just some, random
Not
nut
easy
job
to get
that.
an AK-47.
Yep.
You have to purchase it illegally, unless you have like a federal firearms license, which I don't know very many people that do. Getting ammo for an AK-47 is very hard because that's not a round that we produce really here domestically, that type of rifle. Getting a scope that fits it is hard. Getting the level of armor plating that he got is hard. Yeah, no, there's a lot of things that don't make a ton of sense, especially if you can dig up a little bit that you can see on him on social media. He went a lot of places.
A lot in
a
Ukraine.
lot of things
Who's
that
in Ukraine
most
a lot?
normal people wouldn't have the means or time or ability to do. Somehow he did it. So he's an interesting person for the wrong reason. Definitely an interesting person.
There's a lot more information coming out about him, his background, kind of some of his history. He had he's got a very large record. One specific item that stands out is getting arrested and detained for a weapon of mass destruction. He's got a laundry list of all kinds of arrests, but then there's some interesting dynamics and ties between Ukraine. This weapon looked like a military-grade weapon that they're using in Ukraine. There's videos of him in Ukraine saying he was going to help fight this war in Ukraine. There's just a lot of, and this is not conspiracy. This is videos of this guy. So, I mean, you can go and find it.
Yeah,
now.
Some people have archived, they were fast enough to archive his social media. So, like, somebody had like a video out there of all of his posts. They videoed them, and
it's very interesting to see how like some of these candidates and these questionable suspects or people, that stuff comes out on their stuff gets scrubbed very quickly or, shut down really quickly and protected. And it's amazing the journalism and the, kind of freedom fighting grassroots reporters that are out there doing research now and getting information. It's pretty wild. I think that's one of probably the good things about social media is not just relying on mainstream media as our main outlet for what the quote-unquote truth is. But here, just to wrap up on this point on Ron DeSantis, I'm just going to play a little soundbite from him speaking out about the Trump assassination attempt and what they intend to do. Because at the end of the day, I think right now there's, I'll just speak for myself, a lot of distrust with our government agencies, the FBI ultimately being one of those agencies that is trying to try and prosecute Donald Trump. And they want us to trust handing over all of the evidence and the person in custody over to them, and that they have the best interest in mind to share the truth with us. I think a lot of people lost a lot of trust in some of these government agencies. And so to this point, here's Ron DeSantis.
It's assassination of former President Donald Trump to the office of statewide prosecutor under the supervision of Attorney General Ashley Moody. The suspect, Ryan Ralph, is believed to have committed state law violations across multiple judicial circuits in the state. Palm Beach Judicial Circuit, the Judicial Circuit including Martin County, as well as perhaps the Judicial Circuit represented by Broward County. Also, the state of Florida has jurisdiction over the most serious straightforward offense, which is attempted murder. Directed state agencies to move expeditiously and to provide full transparency to the public. In my judgment, it's not in the best interest of our state or our nation of the same federal agencies that are seeking to prosecute Donald Trump leading this investigation, especially when the most serious straightforward offense constitutes a violation of state law, but not federal law. In addition to holding the suspect accountable, the public deserves to know the truth about how this assassination came to be. I've directed all state agencies to work expeditiously.
So essentially, he's saying, "Hey, we're gonna keep our hands around this right now before we just go and hand it off to the feds."
I wish he would just run for 4 years because he would win this. I know that for sure.
Yeah,
smoke Kamala Harris,
and
Trump is getting in his way a little bit with his mouth.
Well, there's nothing new there. Nothing new there, and I think this is his election to lose, and if he continues to talk the way he's talking, again, a lot of his points, people are all about the policy, but they are very turned off by the man. He's a very polarizing figure, and obviously in the debates, Harris did a good job because she seemed so polished and presented.
She for sure cheated.
Well,
I'm not one, typically don't throw my hat into the ring on things that are a little bit out there for me. But that dude, she had a scripted CNN interview and sitting next to her running mate and fumbled it like she didn't know what she was doing. And then to knock out a live debate next to your opponent, because she did much better than people that there's things that don't make sense. And when things typically are too good to be true, they are too good to be true. That was too good to be true.
There is information that has, come out from an ABC whistleblower, to your point, that essentially said the debate was rigged in some capacity, that they received sample questions that were identical to those asked during the debate. There was a promise that Donald Trump would be fact-checked while Kamala Harris would not face any scrutiny. And I don't know if you've seen, I think we listened to the video of, love him or hate him, Trump's video editors are freaking fire. Every time he's got a soundbite or she's got a soundbite, they've done such a good job of, because they basically went through her entire debate. And mind you, while what she was saying and how she was saying it was polished and digestible, and it was something that, made people feel comfortable if you didn't know the truth behind the fact that she was just lying to your face. And they didn't do any fact checking on her, to the point now where there's literally like what she's saying and then them editing in what she's really been saying all along. And, I think people just want something that's going to be fair, unbiased.
Mm-hmm.
You don't got the announcers and the people moderating the debate giving their 2 cents and fact-checking Trump, doing all these things. So I hope that we'll see a second one, but I don't know. He said that may not be the
Fox. Yeah, well, I think if he did it on Fox, I think that would be a very interesting swing of the tides, because I don't think it would go as well for Kamala as it did.
So tomorrow is a really big day.
Huge.
Or if you're listening to this today,
I think
today is a very big day.
I think we're getting a 25 basis point cut, even though the market's pricing in 50 and even 75. I think that's too much for this round. Anything can happen.
Odds of a 50 basis point rate cut have increased to 53% per Unusual Whales partner Kalshi. Among the 71 economists surveyed, 54 believe a 50 basis point cut at any of the Fed's remaining meetings this year is unlikely, with 5 considering it very likely.
I think it is very likely that there is a 50 basis point in December. That's what I think.
Well, the countdown is on, and everybody's anxiously awaiting. I know I would love, I think, what did you hear earlier about how many potential rate cuts we might see over the course of the next 6 months?
Jeffrey Gundlach said that he thinks we're going to get 1.25% over the next 3 months, which would be 25, 50, 50. That's like, that's somebody that when they speak, you have to listen, because he has a very good track record in the bond market. He's considered the bond baron. He knows what's up with bonds. I'm not so certain that is going to happen. That would skyrocket real estate prices, which is not good for inflation data. So I don't think they want that to happen, but I would not be shocked if we are getting 150 basis point cut in December. The thing that is the telltale now is that nobody's even questioning if cuts are coming or if they're going to be consistent or frequent. It'll be at every meeting, just like raises were at every meeting. It'll now be, what is it going to be? They snuck in a couple 50 basis point hikes. They're going to sneak in a couple 50 basis point cuts. I would be shocked if they ever did 0.75%. We would actually be probably going into a recession if we did something like that. That's how I would feel. Like that would.
Well, and to your point, there's a little thread here that I thought was interesting on here's why a 50 basis point rate cut would be historic. And let's break this down a little bit. Since the 1980s, 25 basis point rate cuts have become the Fed's preferred course of action. In fact, only 2 interest rate cut cycles have begun with rate cuts greater than 25 basis points. 2001 during the dot-com bubble, 2007 during the financial crisis. However, 2024 is clearly a different time than 2001 and 2008. We are not in the midst of a housing collapse, and the dot-com bubble was a vastly different situation. Inflation is declining and unemployment is still somewhat contained. Effectively, the Fed needs to weigh which part of their dual mandate is more important right now. Is containing inflation more important than rising unemployment? Or is inflation on a sustainable path to 2% and unemployment should take the spotlight? If you believe inflation is on a sustainable path to 2%, then a 50 basis point rate cut could potentially make sense. However, with core CPI inflation stubbornly above 3%, we are not convinced the battle against inflation is over. Rather, gradual cuts with a meeting-by-meeting approach makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Essentially, the Fed has sided with the 25 basis point rate cuts at the start of every rate cut cycle unless the economy was in a major crisis. With the Fed still calling for a soft landing, they do not believe we are in a crisis. History says a 25 basis point rate cut is coming.
Would agree with.
Regardless of what the Fed does tomorrow, a significant portion of the market will be upset. We are set to see the largest surprise compared to expectations since at least 2009. Regardless of what the Fed does, this means a large market move could be coming after the decision.
Probably to the downside.
Yep. Talk a little bit more about that.
I just think with the market pricing in more of a probability of a 50 basis point cut, that's going to make that's wrong when that doesn't happen, or if that doesn't happen, and that's going to require those traders to reposition their assets for the future, because the stock market is a forward-looking entity, so they will sell those assets off and reposition them for maybe 50 at the next meeting, and then we'll see, or 50 at the next. But that's what they're doing, and the reason is the big money is in the first big cut. That's when we'll see a big pop. And also, the later that it comes in the cutting cycle, the more of a pop there will be, because the market will already have digested a series of cuts prior to that. So it won't be the first, second, third, or whatever. I think that if they do it this year, it's going to be in December. Anything between now and November, and they could do it in November, but I just don't think they're until December. And I don't think they'll forecast it if they are going to do it, so that it is truly a surprise to the market. But yeah, I would expect some volatility, and I would expect it to the downside on Wednesday, but I wouldn't be shocked if we ended the week in the green. Anything can happen there, but I'm definitely expecting us to be the S&P to be trading at or around 6,000, at 6,000 or above 6,000 by December end. So that's a decent amount of upside.
Yeah. Now, rising debt continues to be a big concern for the economy as a whole.
Tomorrow will be the first chunk. If you compare the interest rate payments for
interest payments on the national debt just surpassed the Defense Department budget and top $1 trillion this year.
They'll start going down because interest rates are going to go down.
If you enjoy the All In podcast, they do their All In Summit. It's all the 4 billionaires that, have their little podcast together, and they have kind of a cool, interesting dynamic because you got some people on the left, you got some people on the right, but they all, have respect for each other. They have good, debates and arguments, but they're still, buddies at the end of the day. And they did their conference this last week, and Elon Musk was on the panel having a conversation with them, and here was his thoughts around this debt and, the path that we're on and what potentially could become an issue. I'm going to go ahead and play the soundbite.
If Trump wins, I suspect there are people with mixed feelings about whether that should happen, but we do have an opportunity to do kind of a once in a lifetime deregulation and reduction in the size of government. Because besides the regulations, America is also going bankrupt extremely quickly, and everyone seems to be whistling past the graveyard on this one.
They're all grabbing the silverware. Everyone's stuffing their pockets in the silverware before the Titanic sinks. It's like,
well, the Defense Department budget is a very big budget. Okay, it's $1 trillion a year. DoD Intel, it's $1 trillion, and interest payments on the national debt just exceeded the Defense Department budget. But they're over $1 trillion a year just in interest and rising. We're adding $1 trillion to our debt, which our kids and grandkids are going to have to pay somehow, every 3 months, and then soon it's going to be every 2 months, and then every month, and then the only thing we'll be able to pay is interest. And it's just it's just like a person at scale that has racked up too much credit card debt, and this does not have a good ending.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yep, that's how it works. I just think that, and I'm very confident that when interest rates go down as a whole, the interest on payments will go down as well. But that doesn't mean that the problem is done.
Mm-hmm.
We really do have to stop like funding
Yeah.
wars that we're not involved in between parties that are just that really.
100%.
Yeah, is it sad? Absolutely. There's sad things that happen all over the world, but that doesn't mean we have to throw ourselves into the middle of every single conflict and be the police.
Well, the industrial war complex is alive and well, and we got a lot of companies and beneficiaries of that. So I don't know if that will be slowing down or going away anytime soon. I would love to see it. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people love Trump is he didn't have us in any wars. He didn't want to be in any wars. He wanted peace around the world. He wanted to have that, respect of, the U.S. and all of our, one, adversaries, but also, two, a lot of our allies, and finding ways to create common ground and, go make money together, go create stronger economies and communities and countries together. And so I think that's definitely something that he's continuing to lean in on with this administration, who, I don't know, to me, it seems like a high school teacher that is trying to, set budgets for Apple that has absolutely zero, financial experience with some of the politicians who are writing these bills, who are spending this money in places that they have no understanding from an economic standpoint, how these things actually work and the ripple effects that they have, not just today, but like
future generations.
Future generations. Yeah. I don't want my daughters being buried in debt and having to, $1 million net worth is like having, $100,000 net worth, which on this path is essentially where we're going to end up.
Yeah, inflation would go crazy. Yep. And we're already dealing with a portion of it from the baby boomer generation.
Yep.
So what we're doing today puts that, down easy. So I think, again, it's the biggest thing on the forefront of people's minds now. So it'll get dealt with. It's the squeaky wheel. So it'll get the grease. Politicians will start running it. Action will be required or they're going to get voted out of office. It unfortunately continuously and always takes too long to get the right thing handled and the wrong thing to focus.
100%. And to that point, 37% of American adults are in households that found it somewhat or very difficult to pay for typical expenses between late June and late July. This is according to the Census Bureau's Household Pulse Survey. A record share of households are uncertain about the U.S. economic outlook. Most expect inflation to take a bigger chunk of their incomes, and the likelihood of a comfortable retirement is the lowest in a decade. So we'll continue to pay attention to these things. This is why policy matters, and ultimately this is why politics matter.
Yep.
As icky and disgusting and, frustrating as politics can feel and seem sometimes, this is why they expect you not to want to pay attention to these things, right? It doesn't feel good. Reading this information is annoying, and it's boring, and it's long, and it's dry. But when it shows up in your household, when it shows up for your kids, when it shows up in your health, when it shows up on your front door, this is why you got to put in some of that work, right?
Amen.
Let's roll over to, S&P, just real fast, has officially hit a new all-time high and is now up 10.7% since August 5th. Since the August 5th low. The S&P 500 is officially up a whopping 19.5% year to date. This is the most resilient market we have ever seen. What the hell is going on? Is there anything to dig in on here? Are we going to continue seeing this go up? More new highs this year?
Like I said, I think the S&P is going to be trading around 6,000 in December or above it. I think we're going to have a nice market again next year. And I just think that people are forecasting like, they constantly say, it won't be as good as it was in the past, and it keeps getting better. And so I think that's going to be the case because, again, more and more people invest now, and especially in the past 5 years, the amount of people that have poured into investing because of COVID and things like that are much higher. And the understanding of how important it is to invest, whether it be in the real estate, which translates into the stock market, or into the stock market, which goes into the real estate, it's going to get benefit from it one way or the other.
Well, I am definitely excited about this rate cut because I know that I've got some assets that, one, I could unlock some equity with some refinances on. I'm not in a position where I'm worried about any of my debt resetting, which is great, but I would love to, be able to pull some cash out and put that back to work. I know many other investors are probably feeling that same way. Just think about how many thousands or tens of thousands of investors that have, potential equity locked up into their assets that, these rate cuts over the next 12 to 24 months are going to unlock. And what are they going to do with that? They're going to put it back to work, right? So I think that's going to be great for the economy as a whole. You look at, obviously, how many like to use some of that dry powder, whether it's real estate assets or putting it into the stock market. The stock market is going to benefit from that. Industry as a whole is going to benefit from that. Mortgage rates are dropping. The average rate for a 30-year fixed mortgage is 6.44%, the lowest it's been in 16 months. And home sales are starting to reflect that. The home sales in the U.S. increased in July, the first time in 5 months. We are seeing, more demand. Inventory is up. We did see, let me see if I can pull up where the latest inventory is from last week. We've got inventory up 1.4% week over week, up 37.4% year over year. And, we've been kind of tracking that 2019 number, which is where, things were
Baseline,
normal the last time we saw it before the pandemic. And that is down 25.2% compared to the same week in 2019. But remember, at its peak, it was 54%. So that gap is slowly closing and moving more towards normal inventory levels, something we'll be paying attention to and keeping an eye on there. Interesting for the Florida market, things have really started to slow down there a little bit. Specifically, the Florida condo market is under a lot of pressure from new regulations from insurance providers that require inspections and expensive repairs. We've obviously seen a lot of extreme weather happen in all over the country, to be honest,
down there,
but specifically in Florida. So that might be potentially an opportunity when you see some people that may have run out of some dry powder to, abide by the laws, these inspections, and, the expensive repairs that are being required. There might be an opportunity to snag some properties. But again, as we wrap up today, figured, we consistently talk about this. Wealth is made in the Crock-Pot, not the microwave. And it takes the typical self-made millionaire over 30 years to obtain their wealth. Less than 1% of them do it before the age of 40. I can't tell you how many people I talk to, especially younger people, that just get tricked by social media and seeing the highlight reel and the lightning in a bottle moments and success stories of all these people. And oftentimes it's a facade. It's a mirage. It's not even real, that these people are not actually making that money. They don't actually have real wealth behind them. And they think that they got to get it all done by the age of 25 or 30, 35. And so to think about how less than 1% of people who build significant wealth do it before the age of 40, it's just, it's not normal. 99% of people do it after that. And that's where the compound effect, like you said, right, really starts to kick in. So just don't forget this on your way to financial freedom, to be involved in the right conversations. I always love that, one of my favorite lines from Gary Vee is trust in the process.
Yep.
Just if you know what the process entails, and that requires small, smart decisions made consistently over a very long period of time, you can guarantee that the process is going to work for you if you work the process. So again, if you haven't connected with Ryan and his team, the X-Ray, 844-447-1555. Just text that word X-Ray. If you are an accredited investor, you want to get on my deals list, and you're not on my deals list yet, feel free to text the word deals to that same phone number to get access to some of my investment opportunities. And we will see you guys in next week's episode.
Cheers.